and with how dominant they performed on the last map, how do you think that CE can break through that and force a third map out of them?
It almost feels like the Tracer factor has had such a major impact. Maev obviously would kind of be the bigger threat, so you take that out and see if you can get Tracer yourself, I think, if you're CE, and we know that Alufal loves to play that, and it's something that they've highly prioritized in their games as well.
Yeah, I think that if you can grab Tracer first pick here, there's a few ways you can use her. The Malfurion pick has been the go-to. They've played Tracer with Garrosh and found success. We've had Tracer Tyrael find a lot of success in Korea specifically. So just first picking Tracer seems to be quite intelligent at this moment in time, especially because SPT has a few weirder heroes they like to run, like the Diablo, for example. You don't really need to worry about those heroes. You just need to pick the kind of top-tier heroes that you're comfortable with and remove those heroes that Melody C on the Tracer has found so much success today with. I think that's the safest play. I feel like SPT was trying to think about maybe drafting around that right now, as how long they've gone through this ban. I like the Garrosh ban because it's, again, not a hero they like to play. It's not a top-tier hero that they're going to potentially remove from themselves if CE takes the Tracer. But they've also taken now that Garrosh threat away.
I mean, it also leaves now both open, Genji and Tracer. So if on one hand CE starts to take one of them, you have still access to the other. You have the double pick as well, so you can, let's say, for example, we see CE pick Genji. You have Malfurion plus Tracer as an option at least. So it's actually a smart choice, especially considering how CE has oftentimes focused on playing Garrosh here. So you take a pick away from your opponent that you know they are comfortable with, that they want to play, while still keeping 2 power picks open, guaranteeing that you get at least one of them.
They're going to take the opposite approach of taking the Tracer away, which is strong with a lot of picks, and they're going to take the Malfurion, which now kind of means that they can at least try to root a Genji, they can silence a Genji in team fights if SPT goes down that route. Then SPT doesn't have that strong Tracer pairing with a Malfurion because that's not available. But I feel like SPT could just simply take a Tracer with the Tyrael, for example. They haven't shown that in this tournament. We have seen China do things like that in the past, though.
And that's the whole point, is like it's the Genji versus Tracer and how that affects the whole system. And if you end up going Tyrael Tracer instead of Uther Tracer, because if you go Uther Tracer, you leave yourself open to other counters. But if you end up going Tracer here, then Genji goes the other side. If you go Uther Genji, now you can expect to see the Tracer
on the other side.
But the Uther Genji are both great counters towards that. And I think that's why SPT, despite hovering the Genji, settled on the Garrosh for this specific strategy.
Especially when we're thinking about the way that Uther has been played today. Yes, with Genji, usually expect him to go for Divine Shield, but we have seen a surprising amount of Divine Storm. And if you go up against Tracer and you get a full stun combo off against her, that usually equals a dead assassin.
That's right. And you know, Genji can obviously do a lot of damage in that moment with the Dragon Blade where everyone is stuck and stunned. We'll see where the chips fall in terms of Warrior, because with Garrosh removed now, I do feel like CE might lean towards the Anubarak they've been playing a lot of today. We saw the great Abathur Anubarak game earlier, but that's pretty map specific. I don't think we're going to be seeing that here on Dragon Shire. I think Tracer is no doubt on the cards here, even with the fear of the stuns coming through from Uther. You've gone down this Malfurion path. You've given the Genji away. So
yeah, I'm actually happy they didn't go the Tracer route. I mean, Tracer is an amazing, amazing hero that we've seen, but when you've got Uther Genji staring you down on the other side, SPT is hovering to ban it. But now you can look at other counters towards Uther. Spread damage generally does well. Things like Lunara could potentially pay off. Something to just kind of really put the pressure on to Uther. And as you said, the Anubarak I think is still potentially, I don't think as much now, but it definitely opens up another world of possibilities and doesn't force you down the Tracer route.
I like that you mentioned the kind of slower damage over time, because that is where Junkrat kind of shines. He can burst, of course, post 10 when he has his Riptire to finish off those weakened targets, but he is going to be very annoying to deal with as an Uther because he's going to be hitting multiple targets. He's going to be doing a lot of damage. Uther's cooldowns are very long.
But this is going to be rough for CE one way or another, I feel, because no matter who you draft for the top lane now, if we're going to see Malthael again, if the Haka is going to be there, if you have Genji in your rotation, then you can put so much pressure onto that top lane that it's really going to be difficult to win that top shrine for CE no matter what. So if they don't have some ace in the hole where they can really throw an X factor in, I think SPT's little gamble that they had with that Tracer Genji play where they said, okay, we're going into a ban on Garrosh, and then the Malfurion first pick worked out really well for them. And CE is actually the team that ends up banning Nuburak here, so I feel from here on SPT has so many options of what they could move into, especially when it concerns the top lane.
Yeah, I also feel like there's a lot of potential for an ETC pickup here now because you have Uther on your side already. Very powerful against this type of comp, especially a Tyrael that's looking to be aggressive with his Aldruin's Might. There's so much you can do with that. I feel like we're not really going to see a stage dive ETC, which has regained popular in Asia recently. It's a possibility to control the macro here, but
I don't think you even have to. I mean, look, this world is your oyster. You have Blaze available. You can go Dehaka if you want to rely on the global instead.
Sure.
With Genji, as we said before, no matter who you choose should have an advantage. There's the option of heading into Leoric if you feel that's what you need here. But they have so many power picks for the top lane.
Yeah, they have every solo lane pick available in the world. They can choose whichever one they want. Looks like they're going to save that pick for later to make sure they can have kind of a counter or a response solo laner. They're going to take the Muradin over the ETC here. And the Greymane pick is a great one because not only is he a strong hero for the map, he's got great wave clear, etc., pairs well with Uther, but also it's one of the big heroes that CE had left remaining to choose from here as their second DPS that pairs well with Tyrael. I'm struggling to find another hero they can grab here now that synergizes with the Tyrael. Are they just going to go back to the comfort pick Cassia? I don't think that's going to work.
Cassia with charge strikes does well against Uther because it's spread, but you've already got the Junkrat there, and both of those are susceptible to dive. Both you have the Uther, the Genji, the Greymane, and a Muradin jumping in there. So that backside, do they just go with something like a Tychus and get that frontline control, have a sustainable hero on the backside that can survive the dive potential that doesn't need that extra help, but then you're just simply looking at a Junkrat Tychus, which isn't terrible, it's just extremely safe.
And it's not quite what Tyrael wants to do. He wants to go in with someone.
Yeah. Going to be Leoric and the Hanzo follow-up pick here, a very popular pick for the map, and can be decent against the Genji as long as he's protected well, when Tyrael is going to make it much easier to allow that to happen with his shield. Still susceptible to dive, as you guys were mentioning, with Genji and Greymane on the other side. Oh, and they're going to make it even all the dive here with the Zeratul lock-in here as the final pick. So a little bit of a wonky draft here for SPT, not a really traditional solo laner with the Zeratul. It's going to be more of a roaming one.
But I like that. I mean, look at it. Junkrat and Hanzo, what are you going to do here? You have Genji and Zeratul jumping on you, and Malfurion is mostly the only one who can really help you out there, even with the shields on Tyrael. Good luck surviving through that. Happy hunting.
I think that's really going to be how this game is decided. Can Hanzo position well enough and still do the damage?
It was this time last year on Dragonshire, before Genji was put in April or so, that Zeratul was the roaming hero that, okay, you want to have a solo in the top lane, we'll just send Zeratul up there to deal with that. And you would use Zeratul to get the picks. Leo, not as easy to get, picked off, but now you have both of them. And you have to commit somebody to the solo lane. Greymane would look like your solo laner here, right?
Yeah.
But Zeratul is going to be required to do some solo laning. And you look at the rotation between mid-bottom, who's going to be your wave clear? It's either got to be Greymane or it's got to be Zeratul, but it's going to take more than just one hero to do that.
It's definitely not going to be an easy lane setup on the side of SPT. I think that is definitely advantage CE when they have the Leoric pick here. They've got solid wave clear with the Hanzo, the Junkrat as well. And Junkrat can even function as a threatening laner to go up to the top lane and harass and be annoying depending on who they send up there. But SPT is just required to get picks with this comp against the Hanzo. It seems like the kind of, Hanzo counter you would read about on Reddit, right? It's the, okay, like, counter him with dive, he doesn't have good escapes, like, I have, I'm level 20 Hanzo, ask me anything, right? I struggle against these types of comps. But on paper, yes, that can work. They have to make it work, though, consistently or in longer fights, and I really feel in wave clear, they're definitely going to struggle.
Yeah, the wave clear part is definitely going to be the thing to keep an eye on as we go forward, but you can instantly see the rotation bottom has included the Genji and the Uther in the bottom with Greymane. Greymane can do really well to dive those camps early, hit the 1 minute mark, try and get the siege camps. It's something that we've seen from other teams is using the Zeratul, particularly Tempo Storm. They used it to where Zeratul was kind of the solo laner. He's not great, but again, you have the flexibility of having the Genji that can come up and help you out as well to keep that top lane honest without giving too much up. It's a matter of CE finding opportunities in that bottom lane, Wolf, to really try and punish those rotations of SPT. But it requires the Leoric player to be aggressive enough to warrant a response somewhere else.
Well, look at what CE is doing. They're going to get a pick here with a very aggressive Misaka who gets caught. I believe it'll be a pick. Yep, just barely there. They go to grab the camp after they push the lane. They don't overextend because they don't know where Zeratul is. They could try to be aggressive because they knew there was a lane swap in originally up there with the Genji Zeratul in top. They grab the camp, they're pushing bot. Look at the bottom Moonshine. In fact, it's so frustrating that Wind can threaten this that they even have to leave the camp. So Moonshine is basically permanent, and Soap isn't going to be able to stay up here too long. So CE is going to have Shrine control. They have all lane controls and wave clear. And surprise, surprise, if Zeratul doesn't get picks or kills, this laning setup for SPT is, I want to say, borderline horrible. It's just simply not going to work by default. They need those picks, and they're struggling right now.
Well, the old Genji taking place of the old Zeratul roaming to that top lane. You can see Zeratul tried to bait out as much as he could. Wind is going to try and interrupt the channel here. He's got his Eldruins back on the other side. Look for one more interrupt. He's going to jump. Buys just enough time for Leoric and team, but you could see they're able to flex the Genji and the Zeratul between that top and mid to look for those picks. Looks like they got themselves one by way of Genji.
Entirely sure what happened up there, but Genji is going to grab this pick. This is a huge turning point for SPT to grab control of both shrines right now. A huge commitment for CE currently in mid to make sure that a channel can't happen, but this means SPT can kind of carefully push forward, soak lanes now safely without really having to look for picks. They can grab for the first time that Siege Giant camp. It's picks like this and threatenings of the channeling of the Dragon Knight that can allow you to take map control. It's not always about getting an early Dragon Knight. That's not always required from a pick, but you can take map control from things like that. Still, I mean, as you can see, this bottom lane super heavily pushed, though. Every time they try to commit to the resources to the top lane in order to take that Sun Shrine, there's a cost involved. And this time, the Siege Giants at least can back them up.
Siege Giants are there. You know, we're looking at the Genji going Dragon Claw, looking to get in, you know, soak up that damage using your deflect, then use it basically as another ability to get some AoE damage or get some single target damage if needed to look for those picks. And I think that that's one of the things that they're doing is that they're trying to put a little bit of money up front in making sure that, hey, look, level 4, you can kind of get that damage at the end of the Swift Strike, but what if you go in and you get that burst damage? And there they go. They almost get it there onto KTY, but instead, Molly taking damage in return. He's going to need a little bit of protection.
That was a close call there. Does end up getting away. Had he had a cocktail available, that probably would have been a pick there. Either way, this ends up being a pretty even trade on both sides, you would say. Meanwhile, Hanzo's going to rotate back down bottom to continue to try to push that bottom lane. Again, Leoric finds himself in trouble in the top lane, but this is more important. ZZH gets rooted here, and this should be another pick. Leoric will go down, and actually, as it turns out, ZZH will get away, so ends up being, even though we didn't see that pick in the top lane, another rotation victory here with these high mobility dive heroes, you could say, these gank heroes with how they're being played, the Zeratul and the Genji.
But that's the thing, Wolf, is that the Leoric's job isn't necessarily to push that lane out and win it hard. It's a matter of just getting some advantage and forcing the rotation out, getting the Zeratul, getting the Genji up there so that you can get the 4-man advantage in the bottom. It's something we mentioned at the start of this and in the draft, is that's where their opportunities lie. KTY, good use of the Vorpal, I think, maybe got the blink over. As Soap, though, however...
Oh, if Lufel needs another shot here, misses the scatter, does not get the decloak. Melody C, will he be as lucky? He gets the Dragon Claw kill, deflection there, and walks out scot-free. Well, okay, yeah, walks out scot-free.
Melody C is just pushing the limits. Now, I wonder if he had his Dragon Claw because...
He did, he used it.
Yeah, he had to have used the Dragon Claw there, so making sure to get some value. You can see Nature's Cure trying to keep Wind alive as the body blocks come in from Misaka. But SPT now, 4 kills to 1, starting to open this game up a little bit. Dragonshire doesn't always start the fastest, but when it opens up, it's normally around level 10. We see both shrines now being channeled, being interrupted right now by KTY, but under assault one more time by Soap.
KTY is just always under fire every time he's trying to interrupt these. He does buy enough time, though, for CE to retake this Moon Shrine. But this kind of goes back to the story we were telling earlier in the draft and as the game began. SPT needs to find consistent picks, and so far they've been able to do that. They've threatened the top lane, and you talked about how Shu doesn't need to push this out, but he also needs to survive, because if he doesn't, he can't get experience, and that means experience starts to fly away from CE. SPT takes 10 first now. Now they look to really heavily contest this Dragon Knight specifically with the heroics they've unlocked here. Dragon Blade's up. This is a great opportunity to try to take a big fight now in the bottom lane. That's what it looks like they're setting up to do.
See VP, and normally we would see VP to try and set up something, but wait a minute, we've got Wind under assault here at the bottom. You can see Hanzo trying to put some poke in as well. The scatter shot going in, stacking up, and it's actually forcing SPT back for the moment.
Yeah. They're not willing to use heroics here, not until they have a better fight. This is buying time for CE, with the Siege Knights even getting involved in the fight to buy time to get that 10. They're just around the corner here. Leoric was nearly picked off in the top lane, but did survive. They need to get this taken, though. It's being squatted right now by SPT. Uther goes down.
He goes down, and they were trying to stay on that to get that channel, but they were unable to do so. And now Wind, you see the Dragon Arrow going out as well. Masaka and team are going back. We saw the Rip Tire being used mid for the zoning control, but CE, despite being down that talent here, ended up holding on, and SPT committed so much to try and get that Dragon Knight, ended up costing them that Uther.
Ooh, Void used here. This is going to give some time for Shuyu to come over here, but that's going to be a dead Junkrat. Will they be able to make this a trade? Don't think so. Masaka with a great stun there to interrupt the tether for Shuyu. He's going to be forced away. CE is able to get this camp down here in the meantime. We're going to see even the Twilight Dream committed to kill Grayman and walk away with no deaths on the side of CE. This ends up being, I think, though, going back to the last fight and that last exchange, KTY buying so much time there as Junkrat specifically, showing what Junkrat can do in terms of controlling channeling on this map, because he's been able to use his concussive mines so well to escape. He has died now twice, I believe, doing this, but he's bought successfully enough time for CE to win the objectives.
CE now with their Knights they picked up at the end of that team fight have taken down an entire fort wall here on the bottom lane, bought themselves some experience back, some map control back. Still don't have that well down, but experience-wise, pretty much even, despite the fact that SPT being up 6 kills to 3.
Yeah, and you know, this is kind of the other side of the coin when SPT is unable to get kills, and we're looking at just straight laning here. Basically, as you guys can see, we're just kind of watching, you know, skill shots be thrown at minion waves here and trades on heroes. And straight laning, CE wins out every time, and they actually have control of the Dragon Knight right now. They're going to use this opportunity to, it looked like, to control this camp. Melody C's being aggressive. They can just kind of use this to say, okay, come and try to take the Moonshine from us. We'll look for a better straight-up 5v5 fight if you want to commit to it heavily. Otherwise, you need to send someone top, and if you do that, we have better wave clear than you. We're going to push mid. We're going to use this advantage that we have. SPT's comp was great as long as they were getting picks, but now that they're not, now that we're looking for straight team fights here and just wave push, CE starts to kind of catch up. They've taken that 13 lead.
See SPT, as you had mentioned, the wave clear on the side of CE has been so substantial that CE just kind of responds. SPT, they're trying to make up for it with kills. Now they're starting to get some camps of their own. I like the fact that they're picking up the Knight camp here. It'll buy them some time, buy them some real estate in that top lane, give them some vision control, try and make those plays elsewhere. You can see Zeratul prepping that top lane on the minimap. He'll rotate down, and this will allow SPT to, again, look for a fight, because that camp's going to have to be dealt with. That's going to help them a lot, I think, to try and turn this. The kills are going to be a little bit more profitable at this point, just due to the fact that the death timer is starting to get a little bit longer.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you on that. CE, I think, should play passively right now during this time where they have that pressure against them in the top lane. Clear it with the Hanzo, with the Junkrat if possible, and then just make sure they don't get picked in the bot lane. In this way, you can kind of take that one bottom lane and shift it to the top lane, leave the kind of side lane to be the bottom lane in this case, instead of trying to take fights down here with Zeratul roaming around. They're actually still trying to contest this. The squat comes through just long enough for Misaka to channel the Dragon Knight, and there just wasn't a big enough commitment either to top or bottom to prevent this from happening.
Wolf, that all started with the Knight camp that they got. We saw the minor invade. CE did get their own, but SPT got theirs first. It forced Junkrat and Leoric to go up there. The threat of Zeratul was able to keep Leoric honest. The other team, the rest of the members of SPT went down to grab the bottom shrine, won that little skirmish there. Didn't even have to get the kill, but it all started with the Knight. They finally started to use the camp, the map to their advantage to open it up, and it gets the first Dragon Knight of the game.
Yeah, it's crazy that it's about 10 minutes in that we do see that first Dragon Knight. It's been such a back and forth tug of war between these two teams, but this is going to be swinging back to the side of SPT as they're able to get this Dragon Knight kick. Should be a bot fort taken. Melody C is rotating down as well just for safety. Leoric is split pushing top right now, but it's not going to be as significant. Still, feels like it softens the blow of this this Dragon Knight that we've had so late into the game. See if they can find a pick here. All their cooldowns are up right now. They could look for a pick onto Melody C with the Dragon's Arrow if he sticks around too long. Good retreat here, though, for SPT.
That Dragon Knight opened up the bottom lane, and we've been skirmishing nonstop, as you said, for the first 10 minutes of the game. Now, with that bottom lane, you no longer have that well. You no longer have the retreat point if you're CE. So staying in those fights as long as you have before is nice because you still have Malfurion, but it's nowhere near as easy as we see another assault here. Wind going down instantly gets blown up as the lockdown in full force here by SPT, getting themselves another kill.
Before we could press R, man, it was all over. It was just very good coordinated dives coming through from SPT. They've made a reputation for themselves for having these coordinated dives, these big flanks and or picks where they either flank to start a team fight in their favor, crush it, or at least get a kill. We saw it in game one. It kind of reminds me of some of the old Chinese greats like Eastar in the past that would be able to make these sort of calculated, executed rotations. Not always good macro play, but decisive moves in terms of looking for kills and looking to fight. The death ball is real here, and even though it's a Zeratul Genji comp, they're making it work here, grabbing those picks.
Speaking of death ball, the potential of moving forward with Siege Giants plus Knights in the bottom lane is super scary. Zuyu, however, in the backside trying to mitigate some of that damage. Here comes the Riptire. Melody C just barely getting out of danger with a little bit of armor provided there by Uther. CE holds on to defend their siege camp. That could have been really scary on the side of CE. The Siege Giants plus Knights pushing in that bottom lane that's already exposed. That would have been potentially a full keep wall, thus more experience and more of that bot lane control gone. Instead, they hold on, keep this game somewhat neutral.
Yeah, I feel like Shiyu actually, even though we think of Leoric as kind of a sub-tank and a solo laner, he actually peeled very well in that fight, actually, while in Wraithwalk form, just kind of absorbing all of that damage, allowing CE to get into a better position, get those Malfurion slower heals to come through, surviving the longer fight. Now the tables have turned because they got that Siege Giant camp. They are pushing this pretty hard. Misaka is trying to look for a flank. At the same time, Zeratul is grabbed top. He can rotate down now and look for a fight. This is actually really anyone's game to take at this point. We're at a really razor-thin part of the game. Winner of the next fight will probably get 21st. Juyu here eats a lot of damage, is on his way out here now. Will we see the commitment of Genji? He's rotating down now on that Cloud Mount.
Zuyu is in a little bit over his head, and now that's cost him his life. Sanctification is going to be used in defense here as Melody C trying to poke. The Dragon Blade is out. He's trying to get the damage in. He's moving forward as Alufal's going to go down, and they're looking for more as the sun's going to land on to Wind, who's now under assault by Melody C. He's going to get behind the wall and live for the moment.
KTY is just spamming out those grenades right now to do what he can. This is upgraded you know, his grenade launcher there to shoot multis at the same time. But it feels like, if I could sum up this game and to a lesser extent the last game, CE has a clean draft. They have a clean concept as to what they want to do in terms of macro control of the game. But when SPT brings the chaos, whether it's the invades we saw in game number 1, their aggressive tracer play, the party bushes, or in game number 2, the double dive with the Zeratul and the Genji, the pick-oriented comp they've chosen, CE just simply cannot adapt quickly, and they're struggling, Jay-How.
They're struggling. They're not struggling to take down Zuyu as he is continuing to try and get as much trait value as he can. Now SPT moving forward. The threat of 20 is very much real as these keep walls start to fall. You get down the structures. Now all of a sudden 20 is a very real threat, and with 20 to your advantage this late in the game, you now have to start worrying. Yes, you might give up a keep, but if you're not careful, you might be giving up the game.
Yeah, Shiyu has just, I mean, he's been almost actively playing like the main tank here. We haven't seen great Sanks on the side of CE here either from Wind. He's had, you know, some mediocre Sanks in the past. He's had some amazing ones. Tonight it's been mostly mediocre. What we've seen from him, mostly defensively used here, which means that Shiyu is trying to play it almost as the main tank right now, peeling as much as he can. It's just been unsuccessful. He's had several deaths. 20's up here. They keep the keep alive. They look like they want to try to make this a pick onto ZZH. Gets caught by the Entomb. Does have redemption available, though. Will this be worth it? Here comes the Riptire.
The body block is there. ZZH is going to go down. Let's see if he can get some heals in there to try and get some follow-up value. Soap, you can see he's so low on Zeratul. Molly, he's getting slowed there. Zuyu's going in. The Dragon Blade, you can see the VP is out.
The VP is out. Dragon Blade's interrupted here, but during the VP, Zuyu does go down here. And now that redemption has allowed damage to the comeback. Melody C gets that Dragon Blade, Divine Shielded here. 2 picks already, 3 picks now on the side of SPT. This could be their win condition. This could be the end of CE in this tournament.
They've got themselves a gray main. The Ice Block's going to be there to deny the pick onto 365, but he is out of mana. It's only Tyrael and Malfurion. Leo still a few seconds away, trying to get back into the fight here. The shields have fallen. The core starting to take damage.
The pings on Molly here. They want to knock him out first. He's got the majority of the damage coming through. It's just not going to happen, though, Jayhow. Too much damage on this core. It drops down to 30% here. Misaka, too healthy. This is going to be a 2-0 victory. Super perfect team will advance, and CE is knocked out of Eastern Clash.
13 kills to 4 to round that out. Just seemed to be a dominant performance. It was a little bit of a slow start, but you could see they constantly use that rotation between the Zeratul and the Genji. Yes, the Zeratul, not the optimal solo laner, but when you can add something to that, Zuyu kept pushing out just a step or two too far. Yeah. And every time Genji would go up there, they'd get the pick, and that would just nullify any push that they could possibly get in that bottom lane.
If you talk about winning the solo lane in a 1v1, that's what people traditionally think about solo lanes, because that's why it's called the solo lane, right? It's usually the top lane, right? And if we talk about a matchup 1v1 between Leoric and Zeratul, and what that means, it doesn't matter if that matchup never happens. Instead, you never have a 1v1 solo lane. You have a 2v1 roam